Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode 261. Last call for 2017. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running your computer repair business. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Ninja, the simple-to-use remote monitoring and management solution. Try it free at ninjarmm.com/10off. And also by Repair Shopper, the all-in-one platform created specifically for computer repair businesses. Go to repairshopper.com and start your free trial today. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. How you doing, John?
Happy Festivus, everybody.
And also right next to him, we have Rick Smith from Renactus Technology. How you doing, Rick? Oh, you are muted again. Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Oh, crap. Well, let's start that over. I'm doing great, John. How are you?
Good to have you on the show, man. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to share some tips and stories. And John, why don't you start off with that? And John, you're muted.
Muted. Jeez, oh, Pete. On the show, I apologize. I'll have some links to Festivus in there in case anybody doesn't know exactly what that is. But my tip, based on what the topic of the show is coming up in the new year. I'm gonna try not to chase any squirrels. You know, as techs, we like to. Boy, I could switch laptops because that laptop has 2 more megabytes of RAM than my laptop. So or it's 0.2 gigahertz faster. So you spend the time to transition over or get a shiny new object. So. My tip is let's try to be laser focused, focus on things that, reduce the time, reduce your expenditures, and increase your profit and productivity. That's my tip of the week.
Awesome, man. All right. And Rick, what about you? Share a tip or story with us that we could learn from.
Well, I guess my tip today would be make sure you're clear with your customers about what you're charging them for. I know I hear this all the time on the show, but I've ran into this twice this week where I do something quick for a customer. And normally I say, oh, don't worry about it. I won't charge you for it. But then they'll call you back and you do something else. And eventually send an invoice or you send a bill. And they're like, hey, what are you charging me for? You never charged me before. So I guess for me, my tip is be upfront with your customers. Let them understand and know what you're charging them for. And maybe I should finally follow the rule. If it's more than a yes or no question, it's going to cost you.
Absolutely. That is good advice to go by. And we all get trapped in that at one point or another, especially starting out or even doing this for a very long time. And it's one of those things that you learn after a while that as you're losing money because you're not collecting it as you go, that it's just not worth it. And you can do this in many different ways. You can take 15-minute increments. You can take your hourly rate and just cut it down in quarters, which is generally what I do. So if 15 minutes or less, you're getting a quarter charge for my hourly rate. And I'm just going to send you an invoice off for that. Unless we're doing a follow-up within the next few days or something like that. And maybe I charge them for the whole thing all at one time, depending on what's going on. And a lot of times, what's a quick fix to us is not necessarily, they're not paying us just to fix the problem. They're paying for our knowledge to know how to fix the problem in a short amount of time. Because here's the reality. The longer you're on their computer taking care of whatever problem it is, the less time that they're able to do whatever it is they do. So it's very important to remember that. And we sometimes forget that. Think about if you didn't have your computer for the next 4 hours. Now, even regular end consumers, that bothers them a lot. Trust me. How long is this going to take? I hear that all the time. So remember to charge accordingly. So that's very good. All right. So one of the things I ran into is I really do not like these hybrid laptop/tablet computers. I ran into one and it was working really bad. And I ran into an issue where the volume, there was a volume button that would come up on the screen and it would constantly turn the volume down. Well, one of the things that I had forgot to remember is that there is a difference between the laptop portion of that laptop tablet and the tablet portion. So the tablet portion is going to have things like a volume rocker, which could be stuck in the down position. So as you're trying to fix it on the keyboard, because it looks like a laptop when everything's plugged up together, you forget there are other buttons and things elsewhere. So remember to look around a little bit. Number two is I had this particular laptop. I was running some diagnostics on it, ran it, no problem. All of a sudden, this thing, the power switch stopped working. Here again, you have to remember that the top portion where the only power button is, it's not on the bottom portion where the keyboard and the laptop are. That top portion, there's also a tiny little hole, which looking at it, I don't know why I didn't realize this. It wasn't a microphone hole because it was on the side of the laptop or the side of the screen. It's a reset button, a recessed reset button. So if you ever run into a problem where these things are not booting up, they're kind of like a tablet. Sometimes you might need to take a pin, shove it in that hole, and hold it down for 10 to 30 seconds. And guess what? It'll come back on most of the time. So that's a couple things I ran into, which I do not like those things. Either give me a tablet, which I don't work on anyways, or give me a laptop, which I don't mind working on those.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to throw in another nickel tip here.
Go ahead, man.
I got one customer that works in a factory. They have a lot of Epson dot matrix printers. Have you heard about the November patch?
No.
So there's a Windows patch that affects Windows 7, 8.1, and 10 that came out. It has since been patched, but it makes it that your Epson dot matrix printer simply does not print. It's like the printer is broken. You can uninstall and reinstall the printer driver. You can do all of that. It just makes the printer not work. So actually, we replaced a printer thinking it was a bad printer, and they got like 6 of them, and they all stopped working at the exact same time.
Why are people still using dot matrix?
They need 7 copies, 7-part form. So that's about the only.
I get it. I work in the auto industry, and we still do some forms that way. So I understand. I just,
in a harsh environment, it's probably the way to go.
probably. Yeah. All right.
Quick tip, if anybody runs into that, your printer is probably not dead.
It's hard to check those things. I was just telling John before the show that I had a power jack that was bad in a laptop. So I go and do a power jack replacement, and I desolder the power jack and resolder on, no problem. Apparently I can still do that. And I get it put back together in this time frame. When the customer had taken it to Best Buy like a year ago, they said, oh, the motherboard's bad. I hear that all the time. And most of the time that's not it. And I had already tested the power, power adapter was good. And the DC power jack portion was, you could wiggle it and it was messed up. So I replaced it. Charge is fine. But I think the motherboard in this particular case is actually dead. So there is absolutely no power to it. So you get these every once in a blue moon. It's not a whole lot. Most of the time, the power board or the motherboard's fine. You just have to replace the DC power jack and you're good to go. But in this particular case, not so much.
So basically what you're saying is the Geek Squad was right and you were wrong?
Yes. Can you believe that? I know. I can't believe it. Those words are coming out of my mouth. It's terrible. But yes, they were in this particular case.
Jeff, it had to happen one time this year. And, what do we got? 10 days left? So, 15 days.
I can't remember the last time I've seen a soldered on DC power jack. Usually all of them now are just the plug-ins. I haven't seen a soldered in a while.
This was actually it was a nice Asus. It was a Core i7. It was a really nice computer. And it's probably only a couple years old. And this one was actually, you know what? The problem is, and I think this is probably what we're going to see here in the coming future, is that a lot of these things, when you're looking at the smaller form factor laptops and they really try to scrunch everything into a small form factor, a lot of this stuff is going to have to be soldered on. They're not going to have the room for a lot of those pigtail ones that they normally plug into the motherboard. So we'll see how all that works out here in the future. But Ultrabooks, I think you're going to end up seeing it go back to the DC power jack. Now, with that said, a lot of people won't even mess with those and they just go, yeah, you know what, just replace the motherboard, which for quite a while you could fairly cheaply. So it just all
well, where it's going to go is USB-C, right? Everything's going to charge through USB-C.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
All right, hold on. Let me make a note here. So on 12/17/2018, you owe me an apology for this. Okay.
I no, I won't, but okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Put it in my calendar right now.
No, and that's the other thing I was talking to my wife about. In one of the things that protects us in our industry, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, people are going to smartphones and this and that and the other," and maybe in certain pockets of the world they are, and I get it. There are still a lot of things that you cannot do efficiently on a smartphone. Name one: print. I don't care what smartphone you're never going to print 100%. It sucks. And I don't know that they're ever going to fix that problem. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But here's the thing. When you have the Microsofts and the Googles and the Apples of the world infighting all the time, all that assures us is that we're going to have work available, because none of these systems are going to ever work together to the point where they're 100% protecting the consumer. They're just not. They're in it for themselves, and that's what they care about, and that's what they're going to do. So we should be happy, because that brings a lot of work to us. I just had a phone call yesterday. Guy calls me and says, "Do you do data recovery?" I said, "Yes, I do." Yeah, I said, "Now it depends on what it is." So he told me. He said, "Well, there was another technician that was working on his computer and found some problems and decided to format it and reinstall the OS. And all this guy's pictures are gone." I said, "Yeah, I don't do that type of data recovery." I said, "You're going to have to send it off somewhere." I said, "Here's the problem. Some of that stuff might be recoverable, but whatever was formatted over, and I don't know what that is, there's a chance that a lot of that stuff is already gone." And that's the unfortunate. And that thing, and that happens all the time. This was not just a mistake. And this is why, again, we look at sometimes the prices we charge, and it brought to mind again where I go, that's why you pay a professional to do what he knows how to do, which is going to be the first thing before I do anything destructive to a system, is pulling that hard drive or backing it up in some form or fashion, so that if something does go haywire, I can get their stuff back. Because these people are not going to have, most people don't have cloud backup. They don't have, even if they've got Google or Android phones, most of them, when you grab their phone, they don't have photo backup turned on. It's not turned on automatically. Same thing with Apple. Their stuff doesn't just work automatically. Yeah, you have to set a lot of that stuff up. I see it all the time. So there's definitely going to be a need for, again, you're going to balk at my prices, which are not really that expensive comparatively. You're going to get what you pay for in this particular instance. All right. Coming into, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get into our main topic, and then we'll get into some more things. This is, I just want to say this before we end up here, but this is going to be the last show of the year. So I want to get that out right now. Last show of the year. And, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyways, our show is brought to you today by Ninja, the remote monitoring and management solution to help you become more efficient, more productive, and more profitable. With Ninja, you can have a faster fixed response time and offer preventative maintenance to your customers. Ninja understands what you need to run your business, which is why their RMM solution is integrated with tools you use every day. Ninja provides competitive pricing, patch management, antivirus, email, SMS alerting. You can be up and running quickly with minimum training time. You have TeamViewer integration for that remote support. It's one solution for managed and non-managed clients alike. You have network visibility inside your RMM. Easy to read dashboards. I like easy to read. A powerful device search where you can create custom queries and export the list to show your customers. So when they say, "Hey, what are you doing?" Here's what I just stopped from happening to your systems for this last month. Also, an executive style report showing important system metrics such as health score, software added, removed, hardware changes, and TeamViewer connections. Ninja is offering Podnutz a free 30-day trial when you decide to buy, a 10% discount. Take advantage of the software. Go to ninjarmm.com/10off. All right, so this is kind of a hang loose end of the year show and John came up with this. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just loosen up a little bit And we're going to talk about things that we're not going to do in this next year. And maybe there's things that we've done all year long, or maybe we're changing some directions. But what are some of the things that we're not going to do? Maybe we're going to niche down in what we provide as far as customer support to our customers. I don't know. But John, since you brought this up, I'm going to throw it to you first. And what things are you not going to do in 2018?
Well, let's do a little history lesson that I always try to think about. This is one of my favorite quotes. But if you go, there's a quote that, and I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, "We trained hard, but it seemed like every time we were beginning to form up into teams, we would be reorganized." I was to learn later in life that we tend to meet any new situation by reorganizing, and a wonderful method it can be for creating the illusion of progress while producing confusion, inefficiency, and demoralization. And I won't try to say the guy's name, but he was a consul to Emperor Nero way back in 210 BC. So this problem has existed since the beginning of the time, and I often catch myself doing it. But sometimes when we have a problem or there's something in our way, instead of attacking that problem head on and just muscling through it and getting it done, maybe we go back and say, well, I need to change my RMM to fix that. Or we need to change AV, or boy, Jay, guess what? There's 2 cents. This product's 2 cents less. I can switch. Well, you know, how much time is it going to take you to change 100, 200, 800 endpoints over to the new product, reset up your reporting, reset up all that kind of stuff? So I'm going to go back to my tip of the week. And the first thing I am not going to do in 2018 is make any major changes, unless somebody shows up and says that I can lay in bed and do all my stuff, you know, while sleeping. Then I will probably make a change. But no, I'm very happy where I'm at with the products I'm using, and I'm going to focus on using those, learning those, and mastering those as much as I can in 2018.
I like what you said there too, mastering the products that you use, because I believe most people don't actually master the products that they use. They use probably 10% of what that product can do, but then they'll complain about a bunch of things. And it's like, wait a minute, you're not even using it to its full potential. And you could probably figure out, like John said, figure out the way around that problem. All right, Rick, what
problems are hard? You know, sometimes you think there's an easier solution by, you know, taking a longer path.
Right.
You know, the walk may be easier, but it's going to take a lot longer and probably cost you a lot of more money in inefficiency and a longer learning curve in the long run.
The grass is greener on the other side all the time.
And more delicious.
Until you get there. All right, Rick, what types of things are you not going to do in 2018?
Well, right along the lines with John, first and foremost, I'm not going to switch either. I'm going to stay with what I have. Paco and I had this conversation maybe 2 weeks ago when I was thinking about, again, switching my RMM. And we had this, you know, something he said just stuck with me. So I had told him, it was kind of when I wrote in about a topic for the show, was basically what I wanted to do was spend the last 2 weeks of the year really drilling down what my procedure was going to be, what I was going to use. And like you say, learning to use more than the 10% that I am using from the tools I have. So that's first and foremost. But the second thing is probably most important to me, is where I've always killed myself, is the timeline of returning, of completing projects. So I'm implementing the Renactus 48 to 96 hour rule. So whatever I think I can finish a project in, I'm going to add 48 to 96 hours and tell the client that's when it's done. So if it's done in 24 hours or 36 hours, hey, I look like a hero. I promise you 4 days, you got it in 2. But I kill myself sometimes knowing I can do something in 2, and you never know how many monkey wrenches get thrown in your program just from your personal life, family, anything that can really derail you. So for me, I'm not going to use I'm going to use a longer time period for my completion of projects.
I like that, because a lot of people, they look at this as I need to be the 24-hour turnaround person. And it's like, okay, in a perfect scenario, maybe that's a thing. And maybe it's a thing some of the time, but the problem is it's not a thing all of the time. And here's the problem, especially if you're working by yourself or even with a small group, there's only so much that can be done. Why put yourself under that type of stress to get stuff in and out? I look at it like this. If I'm going to do a job, I'm going to do it right. And if it takes me a little bit longer to do it right, then I'm going to do it. Now, a lot of people are, well, I do the job right. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. But the problem is, whether you do it right or not, you're still putting yourself under a lot of undue stress for absolutely no reason, in my opinion. I know I say that a lot, but it is my opinion. If you don't like it, that's tough.
Yeah,
So basically what we're saying is maybe under promise and over deliver.
Absolutely. I love it.
Or Rick, I go back to the first comment you make is set expectations right from the beginning. Maybe judge the customer's feedback from there, say, well, it's going to be 96 hours for me to get this back. And if all of a sudden they fall to the floor and start crying and rolling around, maybe then you could say 48 hours. Or if you feel you may lose the work because of that under promise, maybe you could change that. But, I would bet if you said 96 hours, most people are going to say fine. And then if you show up in 24, they're going to be like, wow, that was great. Thanks. So amen, Rick. That's a great idea.
Yeah, because Lord knows I've hung myself on thinking I can do something in a day and a part doesn't show up, or FedEx normally comes at 11. They show up at 7. Things like that. Really,
and they're done that. I hear you. Absolutely. Wise words.
That's good. I like that. So, John, what else? What other things aren't you doing in 2018?
I'm going to not work out. So I'm hitting the gym.
That's awesome. I like that. I mean,
So
not work out. Okay.
Yes. So I already got on the bandwagon a little bit, starting nice and light, getting back in there. But it's been like, 2 visits, and I already feel better. So
it's a night. It's hard to explain what your body goes through when you actually do even a light workout. Just getting the body moving, getting out of that chair, moving. Yeah, that's to me.
Well, I'm not going in there doing hours of cardio, and I'm in and out of there in 30, 45 minutes. I'm doing what's called a 5x5. So I'm doing 5 really heavy full body workouts. Like I'll do deadlifts, squats, and push bench presses. The next day I'll do overhead press, deadlifts. Not the next day, every other day. So I'm doing full body, really heavy, 5 sets of 5, in and out.
Nice.
So
now, see me, I went back to what the old Greeks used to do. And that was, they didn't really, a lot of times they didn't even use actual weights or anything. They just used their body weight. And some of those guys were the strongest, baddest people on the planet. I mean, really. And so I use a lot of the, the body strength stuff. And we talked about it last time, getting a pull-up bar for the office. So as I'm walking in, and yes, John, I'm still doing 20 push-ups on my way into the office, just so you know.
Your camera go down that far? Can we watch them in the show right now? Or
no?
Hey, I'm not going to argue with my comment to any of that would be, everybody knows, at least by the time you get to our age, Jeff, Rick, I don't know how old you are, but what works for you.
Right.
How much you can take, how many hours you put in a day, and whether HIIT training with body weight is your way to go, or aerobics, or the treadmill, or lifting some weights. But I guess my point is something's better than nothing.
Yeah, what I find is I say all the time I'm going to go to the gym. I just don't, but I will walk. I'll walk 3 miles in my neighborhood, and I have a treadmill downstairs, but it drives me nuts because you don't see anything. You're looking at the same thing, so I'll take a walk. So I try to do that 3 to 4 times a week. I keep saying I'm going to go to the gym, but I'm not getting there.
The age-old problem. Yeah, you got to get there and get started. But yeah, that's good.
I got to give a little credit to my wife. She got us on the bandwagon, so she's dragging me there. So,
well, hey, let's be honest. I mean, the women rule the world, right? John, don't say it. Not on the show. Don't.
She might hear me.
Exactly.
Hey, I wear the pants, whatever ones she tells me to put on. So, and I'm happy with that. Amen.
All right. So what else do we got? What other things are we not going to do in 2018? I'm trying to think of what things I don't want to do.
Well, what got you in trouble this year? take on too much. What I'm going to try to do, and maybe I'm blessed enough to be in this part of my business cycle or my business lifespan that I can be kind of selective on the work I want to do. I mean, you can't say no to everything, but I'm going to try not to take any work that I really don't want to do or don't enjoy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just thought about that the other day when I was actually doing that power jack. And I said, why am I still messing around with this hardware stuff? I really could go back to just doing the software recoveries, the networks and all that kind of stuff, maybe deal with it from that standpoint. If it's hardware, unless it's real simple, like a hard drive or something like that.
No, well, let me check myself there too. I might not give that work away, and I'm going to probably not say no, but what I would probably do is try to find a partner to do that.
There you go.
Even if it was one of my customers, like I don't want to pull any cable, I just don't. So, I have a partner that does that and does a great job at that, much better than I ever could, because that's what she does 24/7 all day long. So, what takes her 35 minutes, I'd be pulling over 3 weekends and, whatever.
Right.
So, that's my point, is I'm going to try to find a partner that will do that, and I'm not going to do it.
Good. I like it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the other way and find somebody to do the business side of this. I enjoy pulling cable, getting out, and things like that I enjoy doing. But the business side of this, I just don't enjoy so much. So
you want to find somebody to do your books and do the management and do the that kind of stuff.
Somebody to get on, to do the invoicing, do all of those things. I just want to go do the work. That's what I enjoy doing. And
you may have an easier job than that, because finding a bookkeeper or an office manager might be easier than trying to find a tech to do work for you.
Absolutely. I think 100 times easier, to be honest with you.
Well, I'd say a lot of the same rules still apply. You got to find somebody with a good personality if they're going to interact with clients, somebody that, doesn't mind getting maybe a little bit of abuse when those clients call and say, hey, my stuff's not working. What the heck's going on? And, Rick promised me 24 hours, but, it's 48 hours now. And what's going on? That
was last year.
But yeah, you're right. I have toyed around with that idea. I'm lucky enough, my better half does my books and does all my bookkeeping, but I still do all my own invoicing, and I'm the guy that answers the phone most of the time and that sort of thing. I don't have a, what's the word, gatekeeper per se, but I actually think, Rick, you might be onto something, because that could really increase my productivity in the field in my billable time.
Exactly.
I think one of the things that now I'm sitting here thinking about it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work less in my business. Now, let me preface that with, everybody kind of is probably laughing right now, because I've always said, I try to work less and less as time goes on. But my wife and 2 younger sons are actually going to start helping in the business, and they want to learn how to do some of the basic things, because they can pull in a laptop or a desktop or whatever. They can hook it up. They'll be able to, once I teach them how to do the diagnostics, they can do the diagnostics. There's several programs that can be run depending on what's going on. And then when it comes to the really hard stuff that's got to be thought through, that's when I can come in and finish a lot of that stuff up. But the mundane stuff, the stuff that we have to do before we get to the hard stuff, is the stuff I don't seem to have time for. And that would help in my business for me, because I work a lot, and that would help as far as growing the business. So that is one of the new things that we are going to do in 2018. So I'm going to work less and make more money. So it's win-win. I like it. Here's the bad part. I think when it comes to things like books and stuff like that, I don't like doing them, but man, I seem to have a knack for them for some reason. I'm very detail oriented. So when I go through that stuff, it's like, I don't want to do it, but usually once I go through it and get it done, I know it's done. Now, with that being said, one of the things I have not done up to this point really is had a nice, good checkoff list for bringing in a computer, going through the different processes we do. So that's going to give me another ability. By working less, I'll be able to maybe write some of these documents so that other people, my wife and kids, will be able to go through and do those processes.
Well, you might have just hit on another topic or mention for what we're discussing, Jeff, is know your strengths. You know, maybe say what you're not going to do this year is focus on things that you're not great at and focus on the things that you are, and find, you know, if you are horrible at invoicing, you know, maybe you spend 2 more hours a week billing, you just paid for somebody to do your books for you. So, you know, focus on what you're good at, focus on your strengths, and, you know, improve those even more.
Exactly. I think I have a knack for it too, Jeff. I love to look at it and see it. But the problem is the other part of this is you start looking and it takes you down a rabbit hole. You start analyzing, you start checking this, you start checking that. Oh, I didn't. And you should always do that in your business to know what's going on. But at the same time, you look up. I went to do an invoice, and 2 hours later, I'm studying numbers. And now I've taken my time away from what I needed to be doing, what I was supposed to be doing, that repair I have to do, or that pick up or drop off or whatever I'm doing. So that's where it gets to be a little crazy. It's just the focus portion of it. It's trying to do the work, the actual tech work, and then the business portion of it is a whole nother job.
Absolutely.
So
I think the other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to use a 1-page Excel spreadsheet
for
my business.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is what I've actually done is I've broken it up into monthly Excel spreadsheets.
Somehow I knew Excel was still
You discovered the tab feature in Excel?
Exactly. And you know what? I was able to, you know, it's not hard. You learn formulas a little bit, and I was able to correlate everything on the last sheet, which brings all 12 months all together and gives me a nice little number that I can send off to my accountant, and everybody's happy. But what it does is it actually helps as far as month by month, I can see the growth and progress in my business versus one big long sheet. Now, I went back and looked at my sheets today, and they have progressively gotten better over the years from when I first started back in 2010 officially. And so I look at them now and I go, okay, so I was able to move it to that next step. Now, maybe in the near future, you know, maybe I'll start using QuickBooks or something like that. But John, tell us, that's not even a foolproof method using something like QuickBooks now, is it?
I'm trying to bring up something that we were talking about right before the show and use it against me. Gosh. No, I am having some problems with QuickBooks Online and my recurring invoicing and just some weird things going on. So as of today, have just spent some time redoing my recurring invoicing and auditing my books and just making sure all things are good. But yes, you're right. Software's hard. It breaks all the time. You know, sometimes you got to fix it for ourselves. What is the cobbler's kids have bad shoes?
Right.
You know, sometimes as technicians, we got to focus on what we're using and make sure it works too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I use Repair Shopper, and I probably heard this 50 times, but I just realized it maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe a month, that you can do recurring billing in Repair Shopper. And you know, this is part of, John, you and I had this conversation when we were at the convention, the unconvention, is all of these products or all these tools we don't use, I don't know half of the stuff that it's capable of doing. So that's probably what I wanted to spend the end of my year doing, is learning these things so that maybe I can skip that portion of not needing a bookkeeper if I can automate Repair Shopper correctly, that I can just punch a couple of buttons and get it working. I don't know if it's going to work that simple, but that's going to take some time that I'm trying to give myself at the end of the year now to really do a deep dive and understand what's going on. Because I find myself lost a lot when I have to invoice, do the jobs, keep up with everything like that. And I'm sure that I'm missing a couple of steps that I could do, that I could be using to make things a little more efficient for me and take a little pressure off.
I think part of that comes down to our processes. And I think when we use processes, but the processes are up here in our noggin. And when we're using those processes that are there because we've done them so often, I don't do those processes in order or any type of order. I do it to whatever the first thing that comes to my brain, and I throw it out there. So it was hard for me back when I got started with Repair Shopper to actually when I took the laptop or the desktop to take the information, serial numbers and all that kind of stuff and models and whatnot, and actually input that information into a ticket in Repair Shopper and create that ticket and get that information out to my customer. Where it did help, and here's part where the automation and the process helped. Once I started doing that and I was updating it as I was going through the process, I was doing a diagnostic, figuring out what the problem was, letting the customer know, here's what the problem is, here's what it's going to cost. They email me back. Boom. So what it ended up doing was it kept me off the phone. And that automation helped me kind of take back my own time by not having to sit on the phone and explain things to customers when it's just a simple back and forth email, yes, no, and let's move on to the next step. And once I think we get our processes down, I think we can actually be better off because we're doing the same thing every time. Now it gets very mundane, but sometimes when we're doing the same things over and over again, that's a good thing because it's the same process each and every time. And then we don't ever get to that point where we go, oh my gosh, I forgot to do such and such. Like, I don't know, I forgot to put Adobe Reader back on this particular machine. Now I've just left it up to the customer to come and get their machine and know they have to have a PDF reader, and they're going to go and they're probably going to go to the wrong website and get some Adobe Reader that's infected and basically infect their computer that I had just cleaned up. So a couple of those things, due diligence, what I'll call it, will save you that time and aggravation of having the customer bring it back to you in a short order.
Well, I'm going to add on one more thing to what Rick said. Now that Rick and I have both mastered to a T all the products that we're using, my thought is that I'm going to try not to accept a status quo from those vendors. And what I mean by that is a lot of times I think we get in there, dig around, think we know everything that maybe it has to offer, you know, just continue to pay our monthly fee, but never maybe go back to the vendor to say, and I'm not saying be a jerk in any way here, but you know, you approach the vendor and you say, well, what else can you do for me? What am I missing? Where is the other value? And maybe try to engage more with the vendors that we use to find out, you know, those secret little gems that they probably all have. Because if you just look in the mirror, think about all the things that we offer that maybe you've talked to a customer about that they then said to you, you do that? You know, so the same thing goes both ways. So don't accept a status quo from your vendors, and in a positive way, try to engage with them to get more from them, since you already have a good relationship with them.
That's good, John. I like that. That's, you know what that is? That's called being proactive. Not just sitting around waiting for the magic fairy dust to fall from the sky and make everything to where you can lay in your bed and, you know, with a phone or tablet and just kind of control your whole computer world.
I use all my fairy dust doing my pricing, Jeff. Just grabbing that.
That's right. Just out of the air.
Thanks.
Oh, man. Well, I want to say this during this portion here as we're talking about this stuff. For those that are in the chat room, and if you want to go to the chat room, you can go to podnutz.com/computer repair podcast live. And there's a little chat module there. You can log in. It's free to use. And if you want to do that, you can also ask questions in there, because when we get to the email portion of the show, this would be a perfect time to ask me anything or ask any of the guests anything on the show. And then let's have an interaction time during that time, also along with maybe any phone calls or anything that come in there. Is there anything else that you gentlemen are not going to do in 2018, or maybe even, I don't want to maybe say it in a negative, but maybe do something in a positive fashion? Anything?
Crickets.
Bueller?
It'd be interesting to see what we get from the chat. Maybe we'll give some feedback there.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and take another quick break, and then we'll kind of move on from there. Our show today is brought to you by Repair Shopper, the all-in-one platform created specifically for computer repair business. It was developed by Troy Anderson, who owned his own computer repair MSP business for 10 years, which prompted him to create Repair Shopper. He found himself using multiple tools day to day just to be able to run his business, and realized it was taking time away from doing what he loved most. serving his customers. We love Repair Shopper because it contains all the essentials: point of sale, customer relationship management, ticketing, integrated invoices, estimates, and payments, plus powerful extras like built-in marketing and reporting tools. It truly is the most complete computer repair business solution available. It's also fully customizable to fit your shop's workflow and integrates with a variety of tools like QuickBooks, Slack, and Kabuto, just to name a few. Their support team is great and will give you a full walkthrough of the system when you create an account. Check them out at repairshopper.com, where you can sign up for a free trial. Yeah, definitely check that out. It's what a lot of us have used and really enjoy. And it makes your life so much easier when you're running your business. But, take that time and go in there and learn that stuff too. So, okay, let's see. So we got anybody got any questions or anything from the chat room? Let's go ahead and let's open up the phone lines, and then we're going to answer some emails. We'll take some calls, and the call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. And if we've got any responses from the chat room, we can go with that too. All right, first email. This says, "Hi, Jeff. I saw John mention the rugged computers and wanted to share a chassis from Silverstone that can be used for custom builds in harsh conditions. It is IP43, sounds like a C3PO, spill-proof certified, and it's a rating, and I've been dying to use on a client build, LOL. The Silverstone Mammoth Series MM01 chassis. Very cool. So I checked it out. It does look like a tank. And if I had a use for something like that, I would be tempted to build something to take the rugged environment. But I like mine with all the pretty lights and flashy, blinky things. Till next time, Anthony. That's from Remus Computer Solutions in Huntington Beach, California, but not for much longer. Apparently, he is moving. So hopefully early next year, we're going to get him on the show, and he can talk about the things that he's doing and how his business is growing. All right. Let's see. Email number 2 says, "Hello, Jeff. I really enjoy listening to you and my favorite co-hosts. I am based in the UK and have been listening to all your podcasts for about 2 years now, always waiting impatiently for the next one. I'm currently going through the old ones, which I find very helpful. I've just started out and have a handful of clients. I have an Acer Aspire laptop, which has hung on a system diagnosis and recovery and will constantly loop. Oh, I hate boot loops. I am not able to boot to safe mode, and reinstalling Windows 10 hangs for a while and restarts to the same state. When I try to reinstall Windows 7, it boots up and starts the same process again. Not due to the boot sequence, because changing the boot order to the hard drive hangs. Oh, you can't even do that in a BIOS. That's not a good sign. I swapped the hard drive and still have the same problem. I have yet to take apart and blow out the dust from the fan. What are your thoughts? What do you use to diagnose motherboard problems? How old do you consider a residential laptop too old? I love your show. I do support Podnutz, but hope to support your show very soon. Like John, I'm just getting into Facebook, so hopefully we will get in touch from that as well. Best regards, and God bless you, Edward, computer technician tutor." All right, so who wants to take a stab at that? Rick, what do you think that could be wrong with that particular laptop, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm sorry, I missed part of it. I apologize. So maybe you should move on for me.
So he was saying that it basically was hanging when he went to install Windows 10, and even when he went to install Windows 7, and it was hanging when he would try to change the boot order in the BIOS. It sounds like when you first try to go into the computer. So I'm not sure.
My first thought would be the secure boot. If he can't get it to boot, my first thought would be the secure boot. Okay. You have to turn it. Most of the time, you have to turn it off in order to do an install. So that if I'm understanding the problem correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm 100% understanding it from this. John, what's your thoughts on that? What direction would you go?
Totally grasping what's going on there too. So he's tried Windows 7, tried Windows 10. it starts the installation, but it fails.
It sounds like it hangs on the installation.
Oh, it's getting to the installation.
It freezes. Is that what we're assuming that hangs means?
That's what I'm assuming. Yes.
It's also hanging, running the diagnostics on the machine.
Correct.
Well, my first thing would be I would look at the RAM first. If not, I'd look at the hard drive second. And if not, I would say it's something on the motherboard. Is where my direction, just off the top of my head, is where I think I'd go on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I probably at least check the RAM. And it sounds like you replaced the hard drive.
Depending on the laptop is, depending on what you can pull out of that. If you could pull the wireless card out of it, if you can pull any of the other little things, depending on the kind of laptop it is, just like we do on a desktop, try to make it as bare as possible. Pull out one of the memory sims if it's got two, swap the bay. But
I think the other problem too is depending on what type of laptop this is. I know there are certain laptops out there that are now getting soldered RAM chips on them. Like they'll have one, they'll still have a slot for another one where you can put that in, but sometimes that'll lead you astray because you pull that out and you're still having this issue, but there's still RAM on board. So I'm at this point, I would probably say the motherboard. It could be the RAM, but it's one of those things.
You said it was an Acer?
Yeah, an Acer or Spire. Yeah.
That's general.
Is he replacing the drive, or is the same drive that was on there, or the hard drive?
He said he swapped the hard drive. He's still having the same
James
problem.
in the chat's got a pretty good idea. You could toss a Linux boot CD in there.
That's true. When I tell you what, the first thing when he says it freezes in the boot sequence, that's when I'm kind of going, yeah, something's not right on the motherboard.
Yeah, if we're freezing with onboard diagnostics and we're freezing in the boot sequence, yeah, if it's not the RAM, it's got to be the motherboard or something.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, yep, there's another idea though. Yeah, definitely. You could throw a Linux CD in there and see if you can get it to run off of that. And if you can, then there's another problem elsewhere. All right. And let's see. It says, hi, Jeff. I just started donating to the Computer Repair Podcast Patreon page. Great show number 260. Please add me to the secret Facebook group.
All right. See you there.
I feel John's pain on Facebook. I only check a few groups and update our business page. As far as taking care of ourselves is my current process. And he had sent me a picture of a chin-up bar attached in his doorway. I told him great minds think alike. 20 push-ups when leaving the desk. Walk up 15 stairs to the upstairs bathroom. Do 20 squats before leaving the bathroom. Do 5 pull-ups before going back downstairs. The pull-up bar is mounted the way you mentioned, and it can hold 400 pounds. If I find the box, I will send the model. And he says, my wife also got a Fitbit in July, and I use my Samsung S8 for steps.
Very cool.
Thank you for all that you guys do. Much appreciated, Scott. And that's Scott Clark from Clark Computing Consulting. And I did add him to the secret Facebook group. He also sent another email when we had a little back and forth. Said he's got a crazy week ahead. He's onboarding in Ninja RMM tonight, switching from Atera and 99 Pro to full-on Ninja RMM. Says we only have 36 managed systems right now. Been working full-time and doing this evenings and weekends for 11 years like you. We're finally trying to get into the Mac side of support. I'm the admin at my church, which is all Mac. They generally are. Thanks for all your help. Love the show. You have a good group. Lots of respect for you guys. Thank you for your service. Have a great night, Scott. Thank you, Scott, for that feedback. And also, since we talked about the secret Facebook group, let me go ahead and give a couple shout outs. And if you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And some of our newest Patreon supporters, we have Kurt Soderquist, who you've seen on the show before, and also Scott Clark, which we just read his email. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. You guys are doing awesome. Really appreciate it. It helps definitely keep the lights on. That's for sure. All right. So I think, do we have any questions from the chat room?
We have one. James is kind of taking us down the road about, he says, does anyone here do any training seminars for their customers?
We all probably should.
Well, I feel the same way. I do occasionally. I often, for the orthodontic offices they have a weekly or monthly huddle. So a lot of times I'll go in there and we'll do what we call micro trainings. So we'll talk about maybe, how to use email correctly, internet security, maybe some HIPAA stuff, that sort of thing. But, not in the way I would like to do it.
What types of things could be talked about in those scenarios? Like what would be some of the hot hitters?
Why I think really using email would be one of them. How to really use email. Here's a quick funny story. I was pushing a client. You have to, you need to get Outlook. You need to get email, business email. So we finally set it up, put Office on all the machines. I went through the training of the 4 girls that worked the reception, showed them how to work Outlook, how to check email. It'll ding when it has messages, how to turn that off if you don't want to hear sound. I get a message a week later. Nobody's Outlook worked. Nobody can check email. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work? I guess the one thing I miss is tell them how to click the icon to open up Outlook.
Wow. You would think that would be so simple for them to understand. Here's how you open a program. How could you not know that?
And here's the thing. I put a shortcut down on the toolbar and one on the desktop. So you couldn't miss. And I just assumed that they would understand that. But I guess the thing is you can't just assume anything.
That's true.
Amen.
Yeah, sometimes you got to dial back, and you really got to, because what seems simple to us, because we deal with this stuff all the time, is not simple to the end consumer. And a lot of times we got to bring it all the way back to really starting from the beginning. And I even have customers. I have older customers that tell me this all the time. All right, let's start over, and can you show me that process right from the beginning? So I go in, I shut everything down, and go in, and we start the process for whatever it is they need to do from point A to point Z and everything in between in an order that they will understand. And there's a lot of times where I'm trying to teach somebody something and thinking it will work one way, and I go through a process, because here's the wonderful thing about Windows. You can do pretty much anything at least 10 different ways, which is cool. But the bad thing about Windows is you can do everything 10 different ways. So a lot of times I'll go through the process and I'll be like, no, that's going to be way too complicated. And I already know it, because I'm thinking that I can get through it, but you're not going to remember this. So now I got to go back and go, no, we're going to try another way. You go through that way. Okay, this is going to work. This is going to be the simplest thing that you can do that I know that you'll remember every time. And that's what we're going to do for you. And that's really, it's part of what we do, is trying to make our customers' lives easier, not harder.
Well, Rick in the chat makes a good point about renaming the Outlook icon to email instead of Outlook if they're that much of a rookie using the product. The other thing I find is a lot of people don't have any sort of email etiquette. Like, I still have one doctor that constantly sends emails, typing the entire subject matter and everything into the subject line of the email address, no matter how many times we go over that. But, to be concise, an email is not usually, if you're going to ask for something for somebody in an email, you don't include 25 different things in one email. You have a concise subject line. You ask for one thing in an email, so that person can quickly and precisely get back to you on that particular subject matter. So it would be better to send 5 emails than one email with 5 different subjects in it, especially if they're not related. So I can go on and on. That's probably a pet peeve of mine, because email communication is my favorite way to communicate.
Yes.
But I'm definitely the pot calling the kettle black, because I don't always follow the etiquette either, when you're in a hurry and you forget and all that kind of stuff. But if we all slowed down and took a little bit more time.
I think so. Yeah. And, I don't know, maybe use things like spell check. That stuff. I am this way because, quite honestly, and I know a lot of people that probably don't care, and that's fine. But I really try to, when I look at my emails, and before I click send, I actually read through the email to make sure that it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, and I don't sound like a complete idiot, because the reason I podcast is I like talking. I am not a writer per se. So a lot of times I'll write something down.
I have to admit, Jeff, on that, what you just said, there's been a couple times when I've sent an email and gone back and read it, said, oh my goodness.
What was I drinking? I don't know.
Did I have a kindergartner write that for me?
Grammarly.
Yeah, I've been there.
I've done it a couple of times. Now I've discovered Grammarly, and I use that all the time.
Okay.
It really helps. It really, because sometimes I guess we write the way we talk, but you're not supposed to write the way you speak. So I use Grammarly, and I've found that has been a big help for me. Nice.
All right. Very cool. Now, is that a website you can go to, or is that a piece of software?
It's a site, and it's basically a plugin. It's a Chrome plugin, or it plugs into everything, basically Outlook.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, there's actually a free version that you can start with.
Version,
yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right. Definitely check that out.
Yeah,
I know
Chrome plugin. I'll put some links in the show notes.
Now, that begs a question, though. How many people here are using online email versus like Outlook desktop app?
Webmail for the win.
Rick?
Outlook.
Okay. I'm Outlook.
Yeah, weird.
I don't know. I don't know why I like it that way better. I know webmail would probably be so much more convenient, but there's a couple certain things that I like about the Outlook. That
Me too.
I don't know why. Maybe it's the signature lines.
I think I'm just stubborn.
There's signatures in Gmail webmail.
Yeah, but they don't look great. I don't know. I've never used them.
You need to use your spreadsheets and be happy, Jeff.
I love my Excel spreadsheets. Oh,
I can tell you what, my Gmail webmail breaks a lot less than your Outlook does.
See, here's the thing. My Outlook never breaks.
And mine neither.
Yours does, but I'm talking about your customers.
Oh, yeah. No, there's breaks all the time. And the thing is, I can't figure out why. What is it they're doing that I'm not? I've got 7 email addresses that I check in Outlook, and also on my Android phone in Gmail. There's never a conflict. There's never a problem. Why? What does a customer do that they actually bork their Outlook so bad that we have to have experts that come in and fix it? I don't get it. Maybe I don't. You know what? I probably don't keep everything, though. I actually do delete things and actually get rid of them, because it's not. I don't have to have every email I ever had. So maybe that's part of the problem.
Yeah, you actually care, and that you care about it, and you know what's going to break it and what's not. So you make sure I have a client. He called the other day. He says, "You got to do something about my." He's got Outlook on the Mac. You got to do something about my Outlook. I'm trying to search for everything. It takes so long. I can't find things. And I'm like, God, you got 18,000 emails in your box. And I'm not exaggerating. 18,000. I was like, there's got to be something that can be deleted. And, it's things like that. So, we're I guess, tech, sometimes we sometimes have the worst machines because we don't pay attention to things. But certain things like we will make sure we clean up things like, delete your deleted mail, or clear your junk folder, or your spam folder, things like that.
And I, to be honest with you, like the spam folder and stuff like that. I mean, here's the thing. I use Gmail for most of my addresses because I'm using them through a domain name or whatever for most of them. And so they're just connected to Outlook via IMAP, which I know a lot of people go, IMAP. It's not POP3 people. It's IMAP, and IMAP works perfectly fine between all my devices. No problem. I probably should have a couple on Exchange. I haven't found the need for it yet. So maybe one day I'll get to that point. But right now, everything just works. John, you still are a Google Apps guy, right?
Jeff, it's called G Suite now.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure what it will be called in 2018, but it is G Suite now.
Only an engineer could have come up with that name.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I do. Yes.
Okay.
And actually, I don't do any of my own Office 365. I actually have farmed that all out to a partner company. That is all they do. So
okay. Oh, fair enough. Very good. So now, Rick, I noticed in the secret Facebook group.
Before you jump over to Rick, one more thing, because somebody brought it up in the chat. I think he might have logged out, but oh, he's back. SD Hoot talked about Curio.com, Curio Cloud, which I've never heard of before, but I'm putting a link into the chat in the show notes, which is an alternative to Office 365 and Gmail, which has a private cloud, syncing on mobile devices. It actually has voice as well. So pretty interesting if you're looking for somebody that doesn't want to jump on the Microsoft or Gmail bandwagon. Maybe that's what you're looking for. And I'm just hitting the price icon as I babble on to stall for time. And $4 a month.
That's right in line with everything else.
Oh, yep.
That's not bad.
So just something interesting there.
Okay.
And maybe this will lead into Rick's question where I think you're going.
And I was going to ask, so Rick, I know one of the questions you've been asking in the secret Facebook group, and we'll let a little cat out of the bag, is that you were asking about VoIP systems and what people were using. So what were you looking for in particular, or what was your thought process around looking for something?
Well, I guess it's twofold. Sorry. One, I use Google Voice, which I've used since I started the company, which I really like. I love the simplicity of it and the flexibility of it. But the phone rings all the time, so I don't turn it off. So when they call, it rings right to my cell phone. So that could be, 6 a.m., 10 p.m. at night, and I just answer the phone or I'll send it to voicemail. So what I wanted to do was get something basically, and now I'm kind of 50-50 on the auto attendant part of this, because I wanted to get something really for after hours, so that when 6:30 hits, anybody calls, it's going to the after hours. So that was really my main purpose of it, was just trying something so that my cell phone didn't ring all the time, or I didn't have to manually turn off my cell phone, because it also has my personal number on it. So I didn't have to manually turn off my phone when I shouldn't be answering the phone for work. So that was my main purpose.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What type of phone are you carrying?
Galaxy S8.
Okay, so you're in the Android universe.
I'm in the Android universe.
Okay, so there's a feature on there, and this is what I do. And to be honest with you, if I still had Google Voice, which I could go through why I don't, doesn't matter. I had to move on to another service because I wanted my number, and it took me a lot to keep that number and get it back in my name and whatnot. Anyways, I don't want to change a bunch of my documents and stuff. But if I still had Google Voice, I would still use that the way I used it back when I first started. And the nice thing that you can do is you can actually set, so my phone at whatever time you want, I think mine's 10 o'clock at night, it goes into not disturb mode. But for the people that are in my favorites list, like my kids, my wife, my parents, John, not really. And so for the people that are in my favorites list, they can still get through. In other words, I can still get emergency calls in the middle of the night, but I'm never disturbed by my number, my business line, because my business line, even though I use Grasshopper now, still goes through my phone, but it's muted. And quite honestly, there are some nice features with Grasshopper. You can do some pretty cool things in there, but if you just have a voicemail message where people can leave a message, to me, that works perfectly fine. And quite honestly, most of the time, I let the phone calls go to voicemail, and then I'll call them back at my convenience. So that's a lot of times what I do. But that's probably, I would just set my phone up to go into a do not disturb except for these people in my contact list. And that way you wouldn't have to worry about getting disturbed when you're supposed to be sleeping or you're hanging out with the family or whatever.
Now this is a setting in the phone, not in Google Voice. Okay.
And it's automatic. I don't do anything with it. It's just when I go to bed at night, I think it's set for from 10 to 7, I think. or something along those lines.
But in Google Voice, you can also do call screening. If
Correct.
it's a recognized number, you can send it directly to voicemail instead of have it ring in.
During a certain time, correct. Yeah. So you can set up all those things too on top of that so that it doesn't ring. Yeah. That's a good point, John.
I kind of have a policy where I don't answer the phone unless I know the number.
Yeah. Well, and so it's weird because, and this was the same thing in Google Voice. So the number that comes across my screen with Google Voice or Grasshopper or whomever you're using, for some reason, I have it set to my business line pops up, and I have this weird ringtone that it's the Windows XP error song. If you definitely check that out because it's pretty unique. Anyway, somebody took the Windows XP errors and actually made a ringtone out of it, which is kind of cool. So I know that that's my business line ringing. And now every group in my phone also has a different ringtone. So before I ever pull it out of my pocket, before I see it on my smartwatch or whatever, I already know what group is calling me. So for instance, if Adam's Family theme song starts playing, it's somebody in my family. So, most of the time I can just leave it in my pocket and not have to worry about it. And then my extended family. I'm just kidding. So, but I know people from work are calling. It's any of my coworkers. It's the Looney Tunes theme. So I have themes that identify with the particular group. John, you have a special ringtone. I can't remember what it is right now. It's one of the Marine Corps ones. So I know when you're calling. Other than that, but so you can separate a lot of that stuff out, and it makes it very, very easy to know when to answer the phone or when you want to answer the phone.
And there are a lot of benefits about using G Voice or Google Fi, and even now built into a lot of the Android phones. I'm not sure how the iPhones are handling this, but I can see a ton of times now when my Google Voice and or my phone is blocking spam callers automatically for me, even the local calls if they're talking about it in the chat.
Oh, nice.
Blocked. So,
is that something you need to set up, or does that happen?
On your phone, I think you need to be using the Google Contacts app, not the Samsung Contacts app. So that's one thing there. If not, in Google Voice, there is also a tick box where you can check that to make sure that it will work with spam callers or try to avoid spam callers.
Here, well, hold on one second. Here's another tip, because I see this happen all the time. And this is something you can help your customers with and actually make their lives a lot easier. Most people, for whatever reason, when they get an Android device, but they use they'll use Gmail or whatever. A lot of times they'll set it up to save in the Samsung contacts or whatever LG contacts. And you have to set it up so it defaults to whatever your main Gmail account is. So that way, if the phone is destroyed, they can go ahead and log back into their Gmail account on another phone and have all their contacts, calendar events, and everything right there at their fingertips with no work on their part. They don't have the person at the store trying to transfer everything over and go, I can't get everything. I only got some of it. And then it's a big, giant mess. Use the Google stuff. I see this happen all the time, and people have to rebuild their contact lists. You're like, so I teach people all the time, hey, make sure it defaults to this, your Gmail account. Anyways, I'm sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Again, you guys I use Gmail for personal, but I default everything to my Outlook calendar, to Outlook. So, so basically it saves there as well. But same process. But I guess my question was, when I was searching about the, you guys have really enlightened me on this, and then I'm seeing some things in the chat as well. In searching of, should I consider moving? I guess it goes back to the same thing again, taking some time to learn the features of what I have, because I did not know I could set the time for Google Voice to full. So
what the beautiful thing about Google Voice that I really like, and why I continue to use it too, is because I have a VoIP service phone on my desk too, I can set my Google Voice number to ring on my Google Fi phone. It can ring on my VoIP phone which is totally outside of the Google service, is a totally different VoIP provider. So my number follows me around wherever I want it to, which I think is the powerful thing. Plus, I can take and make calls on my computer. Now, there are a lot of VoIP applications that have a third-party app or a website you can do that from as well. But I also like that it's all, I'm a G Suite user, Jeff, so that it's all built into one service too, so that, all my Google stuff kind of works together.
Right. I agree with that.
Now, there's obviously benefits. Somebody could argue they might have the world's best VoIP service that provides all that and even more magic, but for what I do. And it would be different if I had employees or if I had somebody else, I might approach it differently. But as a solo tech, I like everything under one roof, and it makes it really easy to use.
Here's the other thing too. I will say this, that I probably had less lag with Google Voice than any of the other systems I've used, and I've used many. So again, it's one of those things where as long as your Google Voice is working and doing what you want it to do, you can talk to your customers, and you don't hear that where they're waiting for you to talk because there's that lag in between, which I never had with Google Voice, but I do have it with the systems I use now. They're not, for whatever reason, when they're bouncing around or doing whatever they're doing, they're not perfect. Now, I will tell you that with Grasshopper just came out with a desktop app, which I have. And at a lot of times when I'm doing remote services, I'll throw my headphones on and use the desktop app to call the customer back. And that's perfect. I mean, it's when you're using the internet, it is so much. Cell phones suck, people. They suck. And I don't understand how we went from this copper wire, beautiful voice sounding, you could sing an orchestra, choir, whatever, to this crappy service that we have that we go, it's just okay. I'm sorry. What did you say? I can't. What was that? Can you say that again? So anyways, so I would stick with Google Voice. That's long story short answer.
Okay.
But yeah, I would and learn some of the things on your phone. Figure out what your phone can do for you. There's a lot of things that, and I've been in the Android phone universe for a long time. I never wanted to be one of those iPhone snobs. I mean, one of those iPhone users. So, it's funny to me because most techs are iPhone users, and I get it, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But I am mostly in the Google universe. So, and I could get that Google Voice number back. It's just I have to jump through some hoops to be able to do it. And I would have to switch it to a track phone or something like that. And then it gets switched back to Google Voice and blah, blah, blah. So John has taught me how to do that, but it just takes a lot of process to do it. So I just pay for Grasshopper.
So John, I guess the question is, you said you have a VoIP phone as well.
Correct.
So you use them for, you use them for two different purposes then.
I have a VoIP plan on my desk because it's the primary VoIP service that a lot of my customers use. So I just wanted to be familiar with how that operates. And sometimes instead of picking up your cell phone, it's just really nice to have a regular old handset if you're going to be on the phone, versus holding the cell phone to your head. So,
okay.
Plus, one of the main reasons I got it from my provider was to integrate it with Google Voice to make sure that could be done as well.
Yeah, and John, I've seen you with the rubber band stuck around the cell phone to the side of your head, and it's not pretty.
It's duct tape, Jeff. Get it right.
So, Rick, hopefully that answers that question there as far as the VoIP service and some of the things that you can look into. And here's the other thing too, is that once we get, and I like Rick's idea, once you get towards the end of the year, I think this is a great time, especially when we've got a little bit of downtime because of the holiday season. We can take a little bit of time and learn a couple of things to help our next year be that much better. Don't just sit back and go, I'm not going to do anything new. I'm just going to do the same thing over and over again, same old thing. I'm going to do something, new and understand the things that I already have in place. And then if I get to that point where they don't work to my satisfaction, then maybe I can look into something else that I can move into in the future. All right, gentlemen. Does anybody got any lasting thoughts before we get out of here with this with the end of this year?
Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus.
All right, so let's go ahead and John, give us one parting thought and let people know where they can find you at.
Well, 'tis the season, Jeff, to be thankful for everything that we all have. So thanks to everybody in the Podnutz groups, and thanks to everybody in the community and all the other techs that have opened my eyes and helped me throughout the year. I really appreciate it. And obviously, I wish everybody the best with family, friends, and the business in the new year. And looking forward to picking this back up in 2018. And you can find me on the Computer Repair Podcast group on Facebook.
Awesome, man.
But that's the only place on Facebook you can find me. So,
exactly. Yeah. He's in a secret group. All right, Rick, give us one parting thought and let people know where they can find you.
Well, I just want to tell everyone happy holidays. Wish you all a great end of the year and the best for next year. You can find me on, I'm on the secret podcast group as well. I'll be the one asking a lot of questions. But also, Renactus.com. You can always shoot me an email, any questions or anything I can help with at rick@renactus.com.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys coming out and sharing today. And I just want to say, when it comes down to some of the things we're looking forward to in the future, is the secret Facebook group is going to have kind of an inside track as far as being able to not only ask questions, because I'll be able to pull some of that information from there for the show, but also to all the ones that are in the chat room on a regular basis and sharing with us. And we do take note of what people are talking about and try to bring that information. I know somebody just put in there, maybe sometime we can do a show on some marketing tips. And I will tell you, there's a great show that does marketing tips every week. And that is the Computer Business Marketing Show with our friend Matthew Rodella over at computerbusinessmarketing.com, I believe. But you can definitely check that out. And Matt's been on many of these shows, and he's got some good information over there. And he's also got a regular Facebook group that you can join and get some of those marketing tips that way. But yeah, we do talk about marketing from certain things that we learn or things that work for us periodically. So definitely that will be on the radar also. You guys can come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. You can join in on the conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. You can also send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com, or you can leave a voicemail at our 1-800 number, 1-888-697-0162. We have audio available over at podnutz.com, or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can be notified when the show is live by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. And I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.